In the last episode, we began a two-part exploration of things that keep us from working toward achieving our goals and personal success. Last week focused on identifying what is holding us back from getting started to begin with. Today, we're shifting into the topic of what we may need to give up so we can lock in and get serious about cultivating the personal success that we say we want. I'm living proof that pruning is a powerful way to cultivate personal success, and I'm excited to share how you too can begin implementing this strategy in your life today. And as painful as this cutting analogy sounds, I promise that you'll thrive once you make some simple and strategic adjustments. In today's episode, you'll get a better understanding of how pruning fits into our planning process. You'll hear about my own pruning experiences, and you'll gain some tips to trying this out in your life today, wherever you are in your planning process and journey.
Do you crave better self-esteem and confidence but feel stuck in a fog of uncertainty? If you're ready to gain clarity on your goals and cut yourself free from the fear, self-doubt, and worry holding you back, this show is for you. I'm Jennifer DeBellis, award-winning author, speaker, and clarity coach. I help women like you restore their inner worlds and get clear on their goals to confidently fulfill their greatest desires. Ready to restore your inner warrior? Then turn off those distractions and tune in to this next episode.
Girl, is your vision of your future so foggy you feel overwhelmed by stress and worry that your life is at a standstill when everyone else seems to be thriving? Do you see other people's social media posts and wonder, why isn't my life taking off like theirs? When will I enjoy personal success like that? I know how easy it is to be stuck in this place, spinning your wheels in the mud and sinking deeper into a rut. What if I told you there are simple steps to reclaim your peace of mind, time, and focus so you can fulfill your greatest desires? On May 6th, I'm hosting a free live virtual clinic, From Stuck to Clear on Your Goals. I invite you to come and learn how easy it is to set yourself up for personal success as you get clear on your goals and map out what first steps to take to begin. We'll debunk the myths about what personal success is and begin to design a plan that specifically fits your unique needs. Save the date for this lunch hour clinic happening May 6th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 1 to 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Snag your free seat with the link below or visit restoreyourInnerWarrior.org/stuck to clear live. That's RestoreYourInnerWarrior.org/STUCKTOCLEARLIVE. I'm going to open with an analogy about pruning and cutting away. And I'm going to use just the gardening sense of it because I love a good metaphor and analogy, and this is a perfect one. So pruning at its really basic level is just to cut away dead or overgrown growth. It's a surefire strategy to promote new, fruitful growth. So let's take this overgrowth concept, for instance, though. So let's kind of unpack this a little bit. At times, it's essential to even cut away living buds, blooms, and roots. So a lot of times we just think about pruning as like cutting away the dead stuff, the stuff that isn't growing, or maybe it's growing in a different direction, or maybe it's growing into a structure. But we don't think about like, okay, there might be a spot on this plant that is overabundant. It has so much beautiful stuff going on it. And you're thinking, what? Why the heck would I touch this perfectly good, fruit-bearing, luscious branch? Well, maybe you haven't thought about it in the sense that what good is an overabundant branch if it becomes so heavy that the entire bough sags onto the ground? Or even worse, that it snaps and then it kills itself off from the rest of the plant. And any good vine dresser knows that there is a right way to prune things away, as well as a time and specific things that actually need to be addressed. So there are also reasons that pruning must be done. So here are just a couple of the ones that I think about when I think about this concept. And I love to garden. I love to get in there. So in previous episodes, we've talked about like the mind, body, and spirit connection and how we can get alone with nature and really infuse our body, mind, and spirit all at the same time by just like getting re-energized from the earth, but also all the wonderful benefits that come along with that. So I love to garden, so that's a thing that I do. And you got to find your own things. But when we're talking about gardening, I think about three kind of categories. And the first one is maintaining and improving the health and the output of the plant. The second one is restricting the plant's growth or its invasion into other areas that interfere with other plants or other structures. So, like, you can't let your tree or the roots grow into your house, for instance. You got to deal with that stuff. And then the third thing on my list is training. You have to train the plant. You have to keep telling it how you want it to form. So this promotes and creates a very specific form and size and shape and all of those things. And there's a lot of thinking and actions that go into that training thing. So that is really something I want to drill deeper into today's episode. Because in life, we want to grow and bear good fruit. You hear that expression said all the time. So we must be willing to do that pruning, just like we would do with our plants if we want to get the best harvest out of our plants. So we have an objective. We have a tree, or we have a bush, or we have a vine, or we have a plant, and our objective is to get the best harvest and to get the best fruit in that harvest. And so there are things, just like I mentioned, that we need to do if we are the gardener or the vine dresser. There are also things in our life that we have to do in a much similar fashion if we want to attain that personal success that we're after. If we want to achieve those goals, which are leading us toward that personal success, there is a process of pruning that we need to do in our everyday lives. Because at the end of the day or the season, however you want to look at this, we want to train ourselves to create and produce whatever good fruit that we are nurturing, and we hope for the best harvest. So that's like my briefest summary, that if I could sum it all up. So I want to talk to you about a couple of stories, because as I was thinking about this topic, I remembered the first time that I really had to do this intentional pruning thing, that I was aware of it. I know a lot of times we just do things and we don't realize, like, oh, I was doing that. I was pruning things out of my life. And so there was a time where I was faced with, you got to do some pruning, girl. And that was when I went back to college as a mature adult. So I went to college right out of high school, dropped out to start my family, have kids, run our family business. And then I reached a point where I was like, you know what? I want to go back to college and I want to keep pursuing this thing that I started out pursuing. And I made some changes and stuff. But when I went back to college, I was like, okay, some things have got to go. You have some habits and some things and maybe even some behaviors that you got to cut away from your life. So one of the first things that I did was, I need more time. I literally need more time because I'm going to have to do homework. And as an English major, there is a ton of reading and analyzing and responding to literature. And so I needed to carve out a lot of time. And my kids were still small, so I couldn't just be like, okay, everybody fend for yourselves. So I had to really be strategic about that. And one of the first things that I did was did a inventory of my life. Like, where can I free up time that isn't going to affect me in the other areas where I'm trying to have personal success? And so one of the first things I thought of was, you don't need TV. And this was kind of back before social media was taking over our lives. So I had a few shows. I didn't watch a ton of TV, but I had a few shows that I followed. And right away, I was like, you're done. And so I gave it up. There was no place in the current plans that I had to produce any good fruit out of watching TV. Another thing was behaviors. So if we think about, we're always trying to think about pruning, let's take this analogy to another level here and say that sometimes we have to prune away behaviors that we have, things that we do, or ways that we behave. And so in this case also, I also had to temporarily cut back on like going out with friends and traveling, because I again had to invest those resources and that time into my education. And I knew that it was a season. So some of the things that I was giving up, I wasn't like, I'm giving it up forever. But the interesting thing happened is that I really stopped watching TV. And fast forward over a decade later, I still have to like tell myself, you should watch this show, or people tell me I should watch particular series, and I'm like, okay, you should sit down and watch this when it's super, super late at night. And there are shows that sometimes I'll binge and I pay for it later because I'm already starting to watch it at 11, 12 o'clock at night. And now you're like, you can't just watch it one episode and two and like, oh, I'm just going to get into the third episode and just make sure things. And the next thing you know, you're like, how is it the fourth episode? You're looking at the TV and you're still up and it's like, oh my God, it's 1:30 or it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I have to be really intentional about managing that as well, because it can be death to me. It can produce dead, like nobody wants to feel awful the next day. You have to function. We're adults. And, so you have to kind of say, this is the kind of growth I'm going to have if I binge watch shows until 2 in the morning and then I have to get up at 7 in the next morning and there's no chance for a nap and I am going to have to get through because it's only Wednesday and I have to get all the way through till Saturday night before I can actually sleep in. Then you can start to see where that could be problematic. And that was just one night. So it was really awesome to see how when I cut that away, I started to thrive in different ways. And I was able to successfully achieve these things that I set out to achieve. And it wasn't just the freeing up of time, it was also what I was taking in. I wasn't getting a lot of media news. I wasn't getting a lot of these like garbage drama television shows and all of the relationships and the dysfunction and the strife and all of that bad energy and sometimes bad information that I wasn't getting that anymore. And instead, I would replaced it with this amazing literature that I was getting to read, and I was getting to analyze it, and I was getting to talk about it with other people who was really excited about it. And my life became far more enriched. I wasn't expecting that to be an outcome. It was a kind of a bonus outcome, but it became such a life source for me that I continue it to this day because it's a part of my new plant structure. It's a part of who I am now, and I like it. And I realize that it produces the good fruit that I want. So even when I'm at a point where I'm like, I need to like go back, maybe till the soil a little bit of my life as the analogy of a garden, I'll start to think about like, what are some of those things I can bring back in and I can amp up in my life because I know they produce good fruit. I know they produce good new growth. And so I will turn to specific literature, I will turn to specific speakers, and I'll be more strategic about the types of media that I consume. And it's just the new me. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. And again, I never saw that as an outcome because I was looking very like, this is seasonal. You need to do these things because you need to thrive in what you're setting out to achieve here, and you can't because you need to make room for this and you need to stop doing particular things. And so even like another thing even back at that time was trying not to be so negative. And that was another thing that I was working on. And I'll talk about that more in another episode in the coming weeks. But, that was another thing where I thought this is a literal behavior and a mindset that I need to shift here. And some of that was just being improved and shifting because I changed who I was hanging around with. I changed what I was filling my time with and what I was receiving from those things that I was filling my time and energy with. So now, fast forward, I'm coming into another season where I'm like, you know what? I need to readjust some things. And I'm coming away from teaching in the traditional sense. And I'm trying to get into this podcast thing and onto other types of non traditional speaking. And I'm like, I need to go back and revisit what needs to be pruned away. And in this case, it was social media. And it was like, even though I try to be really careful about getting sucked in, it's so easy to get sucked in. It's designed like that. So by design, it sucks us in. And I was like, I'm going to limit it. So you have to be like, I'm not going to open up the app. I'm not going to look at these things. I'm not going to spend as much time. I'm not saying everybody has to cold turkey everything. But in my case, I was like, you don't have all this extra time and attention. And you don't want to put all this negative and this not just negative energy, but also this discontent. Because social media kind of trains us. So it's a pruning of a sense. It trains us to be discontent. We're discontent when we look at the Insta perfect lives that other people put forward, even though deep down inside, we're probably like, it's not that Insta perfect. But still, we are humans. So we get sucked into that. And then all the products. So create a problem, create this discontentment, whatever it is, show us that other people are thriving in this area. And we're just bombarded with these messages. And then like, oh my God, there's a fix and there's a quick fix. And newsflash, there is no quick fix. So there's no quick fix in any of the things that we're setting out to do Sadly, we have to put some time and attention and care in to, again, cultivate the types of harvest that we want to have. So we have some say so in the types of fruit that we produce. Sure, we're made a particular plant. We can't say, I'm an apple tree, I want to be a cherry tree. Like, okay, so we're created a specific way, we're all uniquely made, and that's a good thing. We have to recognize those things about ourselves, learn to appreciate those things, learn our own language, how we're created, and then keep mastering the best version of ourselves. And I'll say that as I've been cutting away this last year of my social media interactions, I have felt an improvement in my emotional and psychological health, for starters. And I've also felt that the times that I started getting sucked back in, because it's very easy to do. It's like a rabbit hole you fall in. If you start walking near it, it's going to suck you in. And so there have been times where I get sucked in and then I realize, oh my gosh, like a half hour. I've been on here a half hour and what have I accomplished? And I feel miserable. I feel, again, discontent with my own life, and I'm starting to feel, FOMO and all those other things, and just like, not good productive fruit that I want to bear. It causes kind of a ripple effect that goes into all of the other areas of my life. And I think it's harder for us to recognize that when we're caught up in it and we think, oh, it's not affecting us. So, as today's episode suggests, what are you willing to give up right now as you work toward achieving your goals and personal success? So, I just went there. Everything that we try to consume to help us learn the strategies and the tips and the secrets for how to achieve the things that we're setting out to do, every single thing is only as good as you're willing to put it into practice. And I'm talking about take the kind of big risks kind of practice where you're like, okay, maybe I don't want to take like high stakes big risks. So maybe I'm not going to change my entire career right now and go into a completely different field where I need to go back to school. Maybe that's a little bit too much to take on right now. But maybe you scale it down a little bit and you say, okay, I'm going to take some big risks with smaller stakes. So I might try some hobbies. I might try some things. I might join a group. I'm just building off of my going back to college example. So we can kind of fill in the blank and use this in any scenario. But if we're talking about like, okay, maybe I want to take my extracurricular or take my career in a slightly different way, what am I willing to do to be successful? So in order for me to have success, to achieve these goals that I set out to achieve, to ultimately experience that personal success that I'm craving, what am I willing to cut away, to prune away from my life right now? It could be something that's taking up your time. It could be something that's taking up your focus. Remember, there are the behavior patterns that I was talking about. So it might be a way of thinking. It might be a way of operating in a particular environment. It might be a literal thing like TV or social media that you need to cut out, or that you need to come up with a plan that you limit it. I have friends who are also published authors and who are speakers, and they say, I put myself on do not disturb while I'm doing these particular things. So they don't hide their phone, but they put themselves on do not disturb. So all of their notifications are turned off. They do not have notifications turned on to the device that they're actually using to do something. So they're unplugging from that stuff to just work on their novel, or to just work on those poems or those short stories, or whatever it is that they're setting out to do. If they're writing a speech because they're a keynote in 2 weeks at some great big event that they've dreamed about being at, you have to be strategic. So it might be like a temporary, like I'm muting this, I'm silencing this, I'm putting this off. Or you might have to say, I am only going to give myself 30 minutes twice a day, which means I'm splitting it into 15 minutes and I'm setting a timer. So after that timer goes off, no more social media for the rest of the day. And guess what? Your notifications will be there. All this stuff you think you're missing will be there. The FOMO, the fact that you missed out on the things that are being posted, guess what? It already happened. You already missed it. So you're not going to not miss it by not seeing it when it was posted 3 minutes ago. So that's just the social media aspect of, if you want to like abstain from it, you don't have to cut it out of your life altogether. You have to set up parameters. You have to set up boundaries. In that case, you're pruning away a couple of blooms, a couple of buds, a couple of things, because you don't want that branch to be too heavy. So really, I want you to think about over the next week and beyond. Now that it's pruning season, it's time to cut some stuff away. What's keeping you stuck or dormant? So that's a question to ask yourself. What's keeping you stuck not able to produce good fruit or to produce the kind of fruit that you're after. And maybe there's something that's keeping you in a perpetual state of winter where you're dormant and you're like, I need to know how to get to spring. You need to ask yourself, what is keeping you from that? And then, is there anything that is too much to hold on to at once? So, coming back to that every branch concept again, you might have too much of a good thing. And that overnight success thing is every time I hear a pitch about like, you're going to get instant this and you're going to see quick results and I think about the branch that even if it doesn't snap, it's like dragging on the ground. And if you ever saw like a beautiful tree and maybe it's got like peaches on it, like peach trees are a great example because this happens to them. They get so overladen, those boughs will start to come down. They'll bow down to the ground. And when those peaches, the moment the peach touches the ground, and sits there, it starts to get bruised. It starts to rot where the earth is touching the fruit, whether it's fallen off the tree or it's still attached to the tree and still developing and growing. The same thing will happen because the dirt by design breaks things down. And so it has all of the things and all the little creatures that literally biodegrade natural organic elements, and now it's on the ground. If you're thinking about like, here's this overgrown branch and it's laying on the ground, but it's still attached to the tree, that fruit's not going to be that good. It's going to be in some degree of disarray. So if you just start to remove some of it, you'll start to see that the branch will start to come back up and it'll be off the ground. And so unfortunately, sometimes we have to kill some of our darlings, as Anne Sexton said in one of her poems. We have to be willing to cut away from some of the things that are impacting the collective. So maybe you've got too much of a good thing going. Doesn't mean you have to cut everything away and throw it away. If you've got too much of a good thing, find somebody else to bless with it. So if we use this, this tree analogy, find somebody else to cut away the fruit and give it away. Cut the flowers off, give it to somebody. So we can also share in the wealth of our abundance, which is something we should do anyway. But in this case, don't always think about it just as being a bad thing. Unfortunately, it has to happen even when we admire the beauty or we're like, this is finally what I've waited for. And then now you want me to cut some of it away and you want me to look at it and decide which ones I'm going to actually prune away, which ones get to stay and which ones get to go. Like I've been wanting all of this. But unfortunately, we get to those parts where we have to remind ourselves that a branch that could snap, so even if it's going to stay on the tree and hang down in the dirt, that was one scenario. But the threat is always that it could be of load too big to bear and that branch is going to snap. And then it's gone. It has cut itself off from the tree, from the plant, from its life-giving source. And the moment we cut ourselves off from the life-giving source, we start to die. Even if we can have a shelf life. So like a piece of fruit has a shelf life. It can fall off the branch and it can live. It's still going to start to degrade when it's sitting out there and it's exposed to the air and it doesn't have the resources that it had when it was connected to the vine. So the moment we snap, we're cut away. So then we've pruned ourselves away by not doing the pruning. It's an ironic thing to think about when we really, really think about it. So we can only carry or care for so much at a time. So it isn't also just about caring. It's sometimes about like you can only handle so much. That's why when you see great successful businesses start to explode, they immediately have to build a team. So we can only care individually for so much before it breaks us. And then again, if it breaks us, it's cutting us away. So we need to take care to prune what needs to come away before we get pruned away altogether. And something interesting that I want to share with you in closing here is that if we don't take care to prune some things at the right time, because there's a time for this, we risk that sudden death, so to speak, or we risk that sickness, which is that slow decay and inevitable death. So we have to also, not only do we have to be good vine dressers in our lives, so we have to be really protective of the things that we're trying to achieve. So we have to build a fence around it. So we have to prune away what needs to be pruned away, and then we have to try to keep out what shouldn't be there to begin with. As we're parting ways today, I want you to think about how can you start to go back and answer some of these questions, and then how, even if just after 1 week, does your life feel? How are things working in your everyday life? Are you getting closer to achieving those goals? Do you feel kind of a dead weight lifted off of you? Do you feel more energized? Do you feel like you're thriving? Do you feel like you can see and focus better? Do you feel any of these things? I mean, it's hard to measure. We're not looking at, can we measure personal success in 1 week or achieving goals in 1 week? No, but we can certainly recognize that we're on the right track. We can certainly recognize the landscape that we've now cultivated when we're standing in it. We know this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where things are going to just thrive. And so I want you to at the very least, cultivate that space this week where you can start to feel and see and sense that these things are all coming together, and to know with bold confidence that they're definitely going to help you achieve those goals that you're setting out to do, and they're going to help you achieve that ultimate personal success that you're after. So be blessed and be encouraged as you go through your week. Well, girl, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, follow my channel and share it with friends who also want to restore their self-worth and confidence. And if you're ready to get clarity and big picture vision on your goals, consider booking a one-on-one coaching session with me. Find a link in the show notes below to book a session. And as you go through your week, may your empowered spirit, heart, and mind guide you. Catch new episodes every Saturday. Ciao.